my big question, and I think all fans' questions at the end of it, is going to be, where are Tandy and Tyrone off to? Because they're leaving New Orleans, it looks like.
Yes, they're going to I Can't Tell You Redacted.
I was hoping for a little bit more, but I can fully understand. But since they are, looks like, leaving New Orleans, and if the show is picked up for a third season, New Orleans has been such a huge influence on the show these last 2 seasons. How is that going to affect them and the entire show going forward?
So I don't think they'll be gone forever. I think part of the reason we wanted to set that Mina and Mayhem scene at the beginning of the finale was to make sure we understood who was going to be watching it in New Orleans, and instead, while Tandy and Tyrone do all the I can't talk about it redacted.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the city is, at least in our television universe, the city is kind of home to Cloak and Dagger, and I think they'll be tied to it forever.
Oh, good. Well, speaking of Mayhem, I was a little nervous when she showed up in the episode because I thought she was going to turn against Tandy and Tyrone and prevent them from coming back through the cloak, but she didn't. She actually helped them. Was it that always the plan, or at some point did that change?
No, I think that was always the plan. I think the idea was to present Mayhem as someone who was willing to burn down the world for what she believed in. And I think in episode 8, when Bridget and Mayhem sit in that nail salon and kind of come up with that pact, mm-hmm. we created a third character. It's what Emma Lahana likes to call Brayhem. And it's now, while we were able to explore these different characters, now we get to tell the hopefully very, very human story of a young woman who half of her wants to work within the system to make it better, mm-hmm. and the larger, more violent, more vocal half wants to burn down and kill everybody who's wronging women in particular. And so now we get to explore that, who that is. I don't think she'll always be on the same side as Tandy and Tyrone, which is why she's going to be so much fun.
Well, I think that's what makes this show so interesting, because you saw it a little bit this season, was she wasn't always on the same side. I mean, even as Bridget, she wasn't always on the same side. So are there going to be some points, hopefully, going forward where we actually see the two of them agree on something?
Yeah, I mean, I think they were kind of all fighting for the same thing in our finale. You know
mm-hmm.
what I mean? I think they were all... She was protecting the candle because she knew that Tandy and Tyrone were one of the only hopes to stop what was happening. Mm-hmm. We're going to explore some things. I don't want to spoil too much as far as Mayhem's personal life. Mm-hmm. And I think part of what she goes through will put her on the same side as Tandy and Tyrone. Mm-hmm. And because we can't have nice things, certain things will happen to make sure they're almost diametrically opposed as well.
Can't they ever just have nice things?
It would be such a boring episode if they just had nice things. It would be the hill.
Well, true. That's very true. And this season the first season was dark, but this one really took a turn, and you had touched on so many topics that are really hard to not only deal with, but bring to life on screen. How did you go about keeping everyone, including your crew, out of delving too far into the darkness?
You know what? I mean, it's important to us. We used to say this on Underground a lot. It's like we need to practice self-care. Mm-hmm. We're very fortunate enough that Marvel and Freeform let us touch on these subjects. But I think, I can talk to when I was directing Olivia in some of those episode mm-hmm. 7 scenes. Immediately after you go in there, you ask her if she's okay. You hug her. If you need her, you get her popcorn. Popcorn often helps. And we just make sure we understand that what we're doing is telling a story, mm-hmm. and remind ourselves that we're fortunate enough to be able to at least shine lights on things like that and do what we can to do it right, but make sure we take care of each other.
We saw in the beginning of this season kind of the little rocky relationship between Tandy and Tyrone, and then in this finale you see the two each other really lean on each other, and Aubrey had a really great scene where he's telling Tandy, it's because of you that we're doing this. You're strong, you're powerful. What was it like filming and being there for that moment? Because that to me was probably the best moment of the episode. Yeah,
I mean, I think it was funny as we started breaking it, because in the finale of season 1, we have the "You're Tyrone frickin' Johnson" scene where his cloak is ripped. She gives him back his hoodie. And as we found this, Tandy had been through so much. She went from being cynical about support groups to victim blaming to becoming a victim herself to even understanding Leah on a human level, despite what she did to her. And so we wanted to bring Tandy that kind of similar moment that Tyrone had last season of "Can I Do It?" And I think something, at least I find from my friendships and my relationships, is your friends always have a better way of seeing the good in you than you do. I think it's human nature. So Tyrone bucks her up, and then Tandy comes out of it not only being able to compartmentalize the issues with her dad, but she comes out of it coming right at Bridget the minute she gets to that church saying, "I need your help. I want to help other people." And I think we often watch superhero stories where on another show that would be episode 1. Season 1, episode 1, I want to help other people. I want to go find bad people and hurt them. I feel like Tandy and Olivia in particular have earned that in spades, and I'm excited to see her unleashed upon whatever the heck they're driving towards.
Oh, exactly. As a showrunner, was there anything in this season, because you lay it out on paper in the beginning, but as the season progresses, I can only assume that there are some things you either learn or you have to change. Did that happen at all this season?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it happens all the time. We're particularly particular in that we write a 96-page Bible. I think this season was 96 pages in what we want to do and what we want to explore, what kind of themes we want to explore. But as you start understanding even simple things like budget and what locations are available, you and the fact that we're constrained to 40-something minutes of storytelling time, there's certain things you have to combine, there's certain things you have to do. For the most part, we stuck to our plan pretty well. But at the end of the day, it's always just make sure we lean into the talents of Olivia, Aubrey, and Emma. I think Emma and Olivia training so hard in their martial arts. Their own. Aubrey and Josh, who play Solomon, having such a good rapport. As we saw how well that worked, we lean into their strengths, and that's kind of what we do.
Was there anything that you learned in this season that you really want to touch upon next season?
No, I think what we want to touch upon in upcoming seasons is the relationship. I think we've been intentionally keeping this platonic, making sure they became best friends first. And I think what we wanted to do in the last scene was to kind of put our foot in the door and just nudge it open a little. And we want to explore whether or not it's a good idea that there might be some romantic tension between Tyrone and Tandy.
What I like so much about this show is that you have built a friendship, that it wasn't just, because I know a lot of people, especially in season 1, kept asking, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? It's going to happen. And this was all about, let's lay the groundwork first before we even get there. So are you guys going to continue? I know you said you just nudged it a little bit, but do you see it as more of a continued slow burn or just take the jump?
I think you're going to enjoy asking that question as we lay out season 3 if we're fortunate enough.
Very good answer. One of the other things I think is interesting is we said in the beginning of this kind of conversation, your decision to have Tandy and Tyrone get on the bus and go. What drove that decision?
A couple things I can't talk about, but the biggest thing is we're telling a story of coming of age, and at least for me and for a lot of us in the room, you don't know who you are until you take yourselves out of your comfort zone. And Tandy and Tyrone both grew up in New Orleans and pretty much spent all their time there. One of them says, I've never been anywhere. And I feel like for a coming of age story and for a hero's journey, of which we're telling both of those require taking yourself out of your comfort zone and kind of rediscovering yourself. And that's kind of what at least the beginning of season 3 will be.
Will it continue to focus on the more supernatural aspect of the show, or we kind of get back to season 1 and defining these characters?
I think ideally we can do both. I feel like one of the reasons we were kind of made sure we were judicious in season 1 is because once Tandy starts jumping out of Tyrone's cloak, or once she can manifest a sword or a light bomb, you can't really put that genie back in the bottle. So I think what we're hoping for in future seasons is a little more adventure, a little more supernatural, but always, always, always rooted in character.
I think one of the big questions also fans are going to ask after they see this finale is, now that Tandy and Tyrone are, kind of disappearing out of New Orleans for a little bit, could we possibly get our crossover with Marvel's Runaways?
Oh, it's funny you should mention that, because I can't say anything.
Well, I'm hoping that since you can't say anything, it means it's a good sign of something to come, because I know that's something that a lot of fans and myself would be really excited for, and I know it's something you guys have teased for a while, so maybe this will be the first step along the way.
I'm blinking in Morse code right now. I'm sorry.
Well, let me sneak in one last question from you. Throughout this whole season, as I said, there's been really dark moments, and there's also been actually some really light moments, and our characters have learned a lot. What is the thing you are most proud of in this season?
I think watching Aubrey and Olivia come into their own as artists. I mean, season one did a fantastic job, but even just in the finale alone, we asked Aubrey to play two different characters and to fight the perfect version of himself. It takes a lot. It's almost an athletic quality in an actor to take care of that. And then Olivia, we asked over the course of the season to put herself in these conditions where she had to trust us, and she had to, again, in 10 episodes and I think 420 minutes of screen time that she had to share, she was able to come from a place where she was cynical. She kind of took us by hand and showed us the kind of pain and torture you'd feel if you were human trafficked, and then came out of it the other side, compartmentalized your own issues, and now coming actively against the bad guys. I can't speak more highly about what these two kids, and Emma for that matter, have done as artists, as leaders on set, as just great human beings who are so much fun to work with. I don't want to say the word proud, because it's just I have anything to do with it, but just I love watching them grow up as artists and as people.